This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast.
Welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, where we help women remove the overwhelm of living their most holistic life. This is the place to find evidence-based nutrition tactics, healthy lifestyle and wellness tips, abundance mindset, and easily implementable low-tox living strategies so you can rise up to your full potential and protect your family's health. I'm your host, Stacey Heine, certified holistic nutritionist and better living advocate. Now, let's get empowered with some simple swaps that make a big impact for optimal wellness.
Hey, welcome back to episode 99 of the Urban Pharmacy Podcast. Today we're talking about herbs, and I have my friend Aron McNicholas, who is a functional medicine practitioner, clinical herbalist, and owner of Hartwood Herbals. Aron began his herbalism journey by studying with Indiana's own Constance Ferry of Hobbit Gardens, and later he went on to study with Seven Song at the Northeastern School of Botanical Medicine. More recently, Aron completed his master's degree at the University of Western States in Functional Medicine and Nutrition. Aron has completed several other foraging and clinical programs with notable teachers such as Morley, Robbins, and Thayer. Aron currently teaches classes at Georgetown Market, conducts local plant walks, wildcrafts, herbal medicine, and offers one-on-one consultations. If you're interested in connecting with Aron, you can do that at the show notes in the link down below. And today we talk really about the basics of herbalism and what herbs we can start to lean in on, and medicinal mushrooms as well, and more natural solutions to feeling well. If you are struggling with any type of stress in your life, we talk about adaptogens, and it's really fun and a fascinating conversation. And I hope that you love Aron and my interview. So basically, I've known about Aron because he's a local herbalist, like I said, and he practices locally and helps people go on plant foraging walks, and he's just a guru when it comes to herbalism. So I wanted to have a conversation with him and pick his brain all about how to connect more with the earth. As we know, honoring earth is one of the pillars that I teach in holistic living, and getting more in touch with the herbs that can heal us is one of the ways that we can do that. So I hope that you love the episode. And before we get into it, I want to invite you to the Plant Revolution Live. This is my upcoming master class all about plant nutrition. And if you are wanting to just get more plants on your plate and wanting to understand how to do that with nutritional adequacy and understand the myths behind plant-based nutrition, and have some tangible tactics and takeaways on how to start implementing getting more plants onto your plate and into your daily eating pattern, this masterclass is for you. It's happening March 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So all you have to do is go down to the show note link and register for that for free. It's totally for you, for educational purposes, so that you can feel empowered to add more fiber to your daily diet, reduce your chronic illness risk, and to nourish your body with whole plants. So without further ado, here is Aron. Aron McNicholas with Hartwood Herbals. Welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today.
Super excited to have you here. I have, we didn't even, it wasn't that long ago that we met. It was just literally a few months ago, I think.
Yeah.
And I truly do feel like I've known you for a really long time. You're just one of those souls. And I am very excited because you are super into herbalism and you teach classes and you are just a wealth of knowledge. And I feel like you know so much about this. I just went to a mushroom class with you, which was fascinating. And truly, I think that we just scratched the surface of understanding anything about mushrooms there, but it's just herbalism, understanding the plant kingdom is so overwhelming to so many people. So I wanted to have you on today to just understand your journey to plants, to understand like herbalism 101, and then also your favorite plants that you like to use to help heal the people.
Yes.
So tell me, Aron, how in the world did you start connecting to plants, and what brought you into this lifestyle and kind of doing what you're doing today?
Yeah. So I went to school here in Indiana. I went to IU for my undergraduate degree. And I think it was my junior year. Yeah. I unfortunately had some family members face some health issues, and my aunt unfortunately passed away. And she had a rare disease called FOP. And it's where the muscle in your body turns to bone. It's very rare. I think only like 2,000 people in the world have it. And, there's not much that, like you can per se do, it's like a condition that you're living with, and, they're learning more and more about that disease. But I remember just watching her eat like Jello every day and like soft foods and stuff like that, and things that weren't like the greatest. And I remember just wondering, like, could we have done more? And she lived a really, long life for that condition. So she had a wonderful life. But I was like, I wonder how long she could have gone if we had given her like juices and smoothies and herbal infusions instead of Jello. And at the time I was at IU, and I was like, oh, man, I'm spending all this money. I really don't feel like I know what like healthcare is or health. And so ended up graduating. I was like kind of mad. Like some people tend to be after they finish like 4 years of college and feel like they don't know what they're going to do. So I finished that, and around the same time, my mom was taking an herbalism course here in Indiana with a woman named Constance Ferry, and she owns Hobbit Gardens, and she's in Fillmore, Indiana. And my mom was like, "You should come with me, just get out, do some stuff." And I was like, "Well, I don't really know if I want to do that. I need something that's got like a certification to it and like a degree kind of thing now." And I remember calling Constance and was like, does this give me like any credentials or anything like that? And she was like, no.
Yeah.
But I ended up going out, and I just fell in love with it. And so she encouraged me to then go see a guy named Seven Song, who runs the Northeastern School of Botanical Medicine. And Seven Song's awesome because he teaches a lot of botany, so plant ID. And then he actually works for like a free clinic with doctors, nurse practitioners, massage therapists, and offers herbal aid in a clinical setting. So not only were we being taught like how to go out into the forest and identify a certain plant, but then we were taught like if someone comes into the clinic, what clinical scenario would you use this plant? So I finished up his program, really enjoyed it, and afterwards enrolled in functional medicine school, and then completed more recently my functional medicine program. Just trying to give myself a little bit more comfort when people are on like medications or different herbs and supplements and how those things interact. And wanted to just really feel like I had more of a comprehensive understanding of everything that way.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I've gone through 2 herbalism certifications, but I literally feel like that's like a baby learning to crawl. Like that's it. That's it, right? It's just like the world of plants is so diverse. And just like you said, like when it comes to medications and stuff like that, I mean, if you're isolating specific herbs or if you're using like ground up, like it's so complex.
Yeah.
And but the fact of the matter is that our medicine originated from plants.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, what we need to go back to. And that's really the message here at the Urban Pharmacy anyway, to help people just tap back into whole natural foods and a more natural way of living. Because right now we're bombarding our bodies.
Yep.
I mean, I grew up that way. Like I just, if I didn't feel good, or if I had cramps, like I would take Midol. If I had a headache, I would take Tylenol or whatever. Like, what about white willow bark? Like I just learned about that, in the last decade of my life. Like people don't know about these things. So I want for you, Aron, to just explain like, what is herbalism?
Sure.
What is it to you?
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of the basics.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question too, because nowadays we have so many different ways of practicing herbal medicine, and kind of like what you mentioned, it's like an ever evolving process. And I think if you call yourself an herbalist, you're someone that's willing to admit that like you're always learning, because there's so many plants out there. And even like now, like I know plants that are really well to Indiana and more like the Midwest and the East Coast, since I've traveled there a lot to collect plants. But like, I don't know what kind of plants are, over in like Costa Rica as well, so I'm still learning myself because I don't know all the different geographical locations per se. Yeah. So I think an herbalist is one for someone that's willing to like keep learning. And two, I'd say an herbalist is someone that does connect with plants, mushrooms, trees, things that we find outside a lot of times the natural environment, and employs their use or their virtues. I like to use the word virtues rather than like usage. Their virtues to kind of help with their own well-being and others' well-being, and stewards the land. I think that's a big thing that's also forgotten about. If I go out and I gather herbs for like clinical practice, and I take all the blue vervain that's down the road, that doesn't allow you to have any, or allow the natural beauty of that plant to really come out. So it's someone that ethically stewards the land and comes into contact with that. And I think nowadays, we have people who practice herbal medicine, and then there's also people who forage and practice herbal medicine. And that's a big thing I think that we need to get back into. I think there's been this fear like, oh, if I go gather this and eat this, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And I really like a guy named Sam Thayer. He's written 3 great books. He's out in Wisconsin. He teaches a lot of foraging classes, and I've been blessed enough to attend some of them myself. And he really drives home the nail that like, we've been doing this, and this is in our DNA. Like we all were descended from foragers at some point. And I think, to me, like herbal medicine is really getting out there, getting your hands dirty, putting your hands in the soil and learning how to gather these plants, because that's how you get this relationship with these plants.
Yeah, I love that. And a pillar that I teach in my brand within holistic living is body nourishment, which plants can do. And then also honoring earth. And that is what you were just explaining in a myriad of ways, like getting out there, connecting to the plants that we can then use as medicine and to nourish our body, but also honoring the fact that we can't take it all for ourselves. And that if we want the plant to reproduce, or if we want to leave it for other people, we have to just be mindful of that.
Yeah.
That's really important. And I love that. In terms of foraging, can you explain to people what that means? Because my son was in the car yesterday. He's 5 and he goes to forest school. And he was talking to me about foraging and what it means to him. And it was just adorable. But what does that mean? Because a lot of people have literally no clue what that even means.
Sure. Yeah. So I personally consider foraging the ethical gathering of plants, mushrooms, what have you. And the ethical, again, is like that big part of it. We have had a whole industry now where, like, for like example, like golden seal is endangered. Lots of plants are getting endangered because we've had this industry of over harvesting. So to me, foraging is that ethical gathering of plants. I think it's great because it connects you with it, but then it also helps you avoid that like over harvesting process, because if you want to read like a book that'll make you feel bad, read a book called The Business of Botanicals. And it talks about how there's just these warehouses of plants just sitting, stacked to like the ceiling, and they're shipped over to Germany after they sit for like a year. And then they're shipped back to us to finally be turned into like, tincture bottles, capsules. And so I think foraging to me is like taking those plants, not letting them sit around for a year, gathering the plants and then using them and respecting them, and realize that like, if I go out and I dig up a burdock root, like I took a life, like I killed a plant. Yeah. But that might be worth it if someone came to me and said, hey, I have really bad liver problems going on right now and I need something, or I need a digestive bitter. So I think, foraging means to me like the ethical gathering and with the intention to help. And then I'm also taking into consideration the plant and its environment.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, you just mentioned digestive bitters. Can you explain to people what digestive bitters are?
Yeah. If you look at our diet nowadays, we like sweets and salt more than bitter. We don't have a lot of bitter foods. Like if I told someone to go eat lettuce, they'd probably say, "Oh, that's great." But if I said, "Go eat arugula or dandelion leaves," they're probably going to look at me like, "Oh, it's not my favorite one. And what are you talking about?" So digestive bitters are great because it helps wake up our senses to something that we used to have and we don't. But bitters have this quality of helping with digestive secretions, whether that's like saliva or bile. And it also helps with nutrient absorption, because when we have that secretion, we're going to have better breakdown, better nutrient absorption in our body. And so digestive bitters are ones that I take every day, like 15 minutes before and after a meal. And it doesn't have to be like huge quantities, but just maybe like a half dropper if you're taking a tincture, just to kind of wake up those senses and let your body know, hey, there's something bitter in my diet. And a lot of people ask, "Oh, can I do like digestive bitters as a capsule?" You can, but like, let me ask you, like when you swallow a capsule, do you ever taste what was in that capsule?
Right. So it's not activating with that salivary amylase. That's a really good point.
So, what you could do is you could open up a couple capsules and sprinkle them on all those capsules in the bottle, so they're coated. Or you could choose to do it as a tea or tinctures to kind of help with that. And digestive bitters can be any number of herbs. Usually if you got like a tincture bottle, you might say things like gentian or ginger, sometimes some citrus or burdock or yellow dock root. It kind of just depends what herbs you're kind of looking to have into that formula.
And I think that it is so interesting that you mentioned, you're right. We favor the sweet, the salty, but we're not getting enough bitter in the diet. And that's really important for the moms to know out there. You want to introduce your children to bitter food as early as possible. The reason why your children don't like a lot of health promoting foods is because they are bitter. For instance, like you were saying, like arugula, but broccoli is another one. Like broccoli can seem bitter to people, especially dark green, like greens, like, oh gosh, what greens were you talking about? Good Lord.
Arugula, yeah.
Well, no, yeah, arugula, dandelion greens, dandelion greens are definitely bitter. But broccoli sprouts, just a little mom hack, you guys. Get your kids eating broccoli sprouts as early as you possibly can, because that's going to make them receptive to sulforaphane, which is super, sulfur components in plants. And that is one of the reasons why plants taste so bitter, but they're like so good for us on so many levels. And I love that. That's really awesome. So that's just a really good point in terms of taste. And I think that sometimes when things taste like super bitter to us, or more bitter, it's like, is that because we're not used to it? Or is that because like our body needs it? That's just something that I ask myself, like,
well, I think, when you're trying to like decide, like, what herb do I want to start with? If you look for like subtle indications, you'll find it, and your body will crave certain things at certain times. And then when it's done with it, you won't. And I remember when I was kind of getting into foraging and trying to start with different herbs, I was always attracted to mushrooms, and reishi was one that was kind of near and dear to me. And it's interesting, like I would go for a hike in the woods and I'd just find it. And there's a lot of different species in Ganoderma, which is the genus that reishi is. And there's a lot of different species. And I'd find them growing all over. Then I'd go for like a walk in my neighborhood and it's next to a fire hydrant, like of all places. And so it's crazy. Like, I think if you look for like what's following you in your life, like popping up repeatedly, and then what your body craves, it's going to tell you like what you need.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a whole level of awareness. And I like that. That's good. That's really good. With the recent events in history happening with the Ohio train derailment and the toxins getting into our environment, into our water, into our air, it's more important than ever to make sure that we are reducing our toxins, right? And one of the easiest ways that we can do that is by looking at what we're putting on our body on a daily basis. So thinking about our hand soap, our shampoo, our conditioner, our body wash, the lipstick and the lip gloss and the chapsticks that we're using, the face wash, the body scrub, the lotions. All of these things do impact our body on an internal level. And when we put toxic products on our skin, that can potentially get into our bloodstream and absolutely affect our hormones. And we need to be really reducing our toxins at a systemic level now. And I hope that your water filtration system is good. I hope that you have an air filtration process in your home. I hope that you're opening your windows on a daily basis. And I hope, of course, that you're eating organic as much as possible. But for the things that we can't always control, such as those things like the water, the air, we can control what we do put on our body. So I want to invite you to join me in a mission-driven thing, which is becoming a part of Beauty Counter. We are looking for advocates. I need more women to walk alongside me to help empower the public to make safer choices for their selves and for their family. And when you join as an advocate, you can really make a big difference in the world and in the lives of people who you know. So please consider clicking down in the show notes and exploring becoming a Beauty Counter advocate. This is not anything where there's strings attached and that you have to sell things every single month, but this is something where there is a small quota that you should hit to help move the mission forward so that you are actually driving the needle in the positive direction and educating and telling people about safer, right? But you're also getting a great discount. You're getting paid to help people switch to safer. And I just want to be transparent about it. This is not for everybody. But if you've thought about adding an additional stream of income and you want to be part of something big, please consider becoming an affiliate, becoming an advocate with Beauty Counter. Message me if you have any questions. You can reach me through Instagram or down at the show note link. But please, we need your voice. And we are in the 10-year anniversary of being a mission-driven brand, being the beauty brand that every other beauty brand looks to in terms of sustainability, eco-consciousness, ingredient selection, testing procedures, and performance. And if you really want to get behind a brand that puts equal emphasis on people, product, and planet, then Beauty Counter is for you. If you don't want to become an advocate, that's totally cool. I hope that you at least buy Beauty Counter products so that you can support this mission of helping to advocate for better personal care product laws and help to protect American and Canadian consumers and really spread the word that what we put on our body matters, and most of the stuff that's on the shelf has never been tested for human health. And we need that strategic voting with our dollar situation to happen so that we can make a difference in this world, okay? So consider joining. If you don't want to join, at least consider buying. There's a first-time promo going on, so you can click down in the show notes to get a discount, but you can also just get a discount and become an advocate. I highly encourage you to walk alongside me and do this so that we can make a really big impact in the world. All right, back to the show. Okay, so Aron, how long have you been with the plants? How long have you been studying?
The plants? I'd say when I was about I'm 27 now. When I was 20, I'd go for hikes in Bloomington and I'd just kind of walk around and I'd notice things and I'd wonder about them. And I think when I was about 20, I started harvesting mushrooms and eating them.
Yeah. Okay.
That I'd find. And so it's probably been about 7 years now, kind of on and off and kind of studying it.
Okay. So let's just stop there and talk about mushrooms because I think that foraging, I'm in so many different Facebook groups for Indiana mushrooms because
like you said, like people are afraid to go and get their own mushrooms. People will message me consistently in the summer and they're like, is this edible? Is this edible? My daughter found this. Oh, I'm so excited. And can you explain, like, what are the few different things that we want to look for when we're out and we see mushrooms? And for those of us that like to eat them, like, what do we look for to make sure that we aren't getting a poison mushroom? And I know that that's hard to say just in a generalized way, but there are a few things to look for, right?
Yeah. So when you see a mushroom popping up, that's the fruiting body. And so, when you go out in the woods, you're constantly walking on the mycorrhizal species that are in the ground. So that's like that underground network. And when we see what we call a mushroom, it's the fruiting body. It's a reproductive structure. And so I think the first thing to realize with mushrooms is that they're all over the place. The spores are in the air all the time. You're breathing them in, you're walking on them. And they're a vital part of our ecosystem. Trees, other plants wouldn't be able to exist without their communication. They help distribute nutrients sometimes between different plants, different trees. And right now, the largest organism is a mushroom. It's I believe it's a honey fungus that's out in Oregon. And I can't remember how many acres big it is, but so mushrooms, and they're really intimate to our human evolution too. I'll say that. But mushrooms are that kind of representation of the fruiting body. So we'll start with that. So when you go in the woods and you see that, they can come in a lot of different shapes, sizes, colors, textures, and different seasons too. So there's a couple that are like easy to kind of start with that have little lookalikes to them, while others have a lot more lookalikes and they can be more dangerous. So one, I would get a field guide. A field guide's a plant or mushroom guide that kind of helps you identify plants or mushrooms based on like general characteristics. Mm-hmm. So I'd start with getting one of those. Mm-hmm. Second, I would join like a Facebook group like you were talking about. And then third, I would try to find someone in your community that feels comfortable with mushrooms and can maybe lead a mushroom walk or show you a couple. So they can start teaching you some of those maybe safer mushrooms to start with. And I would consider those safer ones things like oyster mushrooms, lion's mane. Yeah. Anything in the Heraceium genus kind of looks very distinct. Reishi, Ganoderma species as well. Mm-hmm. Sometimes morels can be generally safe, but there are false morels, I will say, Gyrometras that are toxic. So just be aware of that. Turkey tail is also relatively safe. It does have lookalikes. So just making sure that you look for the zonations, the color zonations, and that it has the pores on the back. So I would start with the ones like if you went into a health food store, you would see like probably all those like turkey tail, reishi, lion's mane, and they're pretty safe. And I'd avoid things like looking for like, like ink caps or, other different ones and ones that could maybe cause more trouble, just because if you're not doing it all the time, it can be confusing. Because sometimes like, you go out there and they look pretty similar. Like I've looked at mushrooms and I'm like, wow, like there's not much distinguishing like this, like mushroom from this one, other than that maybe like the gills are not attached to the stem or something like that. And it's hard. And I would really just encourage people to start with the ones that are, kind of common in your health food stores or that you've heard about. Probably people have heard about all of those. And then try to just go for walks, find them, use a field guide, and use Facebook groups or someone in your community to help identify them so that you're safe. And just know, like, when people talk about, oh, there was a mushroom poisoning and someone died, those are usually always from someone who was just like, oh, a mushroom, and grab it and eat it, and didn't take any time to try to identify it or really look into it.
Yeah. Okay. So can you explain what guide you're talking about? Spell that out.
Yeah, there's a lot of different guides that you can get. Lucky I'm close to my bookshelf right now. One of my favorite ones, it's called the National Audubon Society Field Guide for Mushrooms. Okay. This is a good one to get. There's other ones. There's like pocket field guides that are kind of smaller that you can look into. David Aurora has a really great mushroom if you want like dense text that gets more specific. Okay. He's got a lot of great information.
What do you think about chicken of the woods? What's the name of that, if you know like the fancy name? Or like that mushroom? Like, what do you think about that? Do you eat it? Do you utilize that?
mushroom?
Sure. Chicken with the Woods was the first one I ever ate, actually. And so, yeah, Chicken in the Woods is a really great one.
It's easy to identify.
It is, yeah. You'll see bright orange usually, and you usually see it on down logs, which is where you'll find it. I usually find it more kind of like summer fall-esque, but it just kind of depends on your environment. It tastes great. I like to cook it up and then put it like, I don't know, nutritional yeast or some kind of like steak seasoning on it, like salt and pepper. And it tastes really great. It tastes like, if you're more into like meat substitutes, it tastes like a meat substitute.
Yeah. And just going back to lion's mane is like just so good for like your vascular system. And it looks like that. Like it looks like long and hairy, and like it would just be beneficial for like your vascular system and your like all the vessels. And is that one that, I mean, because I've seen them growing, but is there like false ones?
So so the genus is called Hericium, and we have things like lion's mane, but there's coral tooth also is another one that's in there. So there's 3 different ones, I believe, in that genus. And when I think about their usage, they have an influence on what we call nerve growth factor. And so that's really helpful for people who maybe face issues with memory, cognition, and they really need that kind of support. Or even if people have injury,
like I got in a car wreck and like it was a traction injury, and it takes your nerves like years to grow back. And so I started using lion's mane to help assist that. Yeah,
it is helpful for nerve support, and I think it helps with nerve regeneration. There's some debate on the extent for regeneration, but I think it could be helpful, especially if you combine it with things that help with blood flow. For example, like prickly ash, niacin, our B vitamin, that can help with the blood, that nerve growth potential getting pushed all the way to our extremities. And a lot of times you see that nerve damage from things like diabetes. And I'd say a lot of people that come in with neuropathy, they are diabetic usually. And so that's usually the question I ask. Someone says, oh, yeah, I have neuropathy and nerve pain. I say, are you diabetic? And I'd say probably like 8 out of 10 times they say yes.
Yeah. Diabetes is running rampant. Okay. Can you explain to me, we've already talked about mushrooms. Now, can we go to the plants? What are your favorite plants? Because we could say like, what are your favorite roots? What are your favorite stems? Like, what are your favorite leaves? Like we could do, you can tell me, let's go with 5 and just break them down. Like for people to start experiencing herbal or plant medicine.
Sure.
What are your top 5?
Oh man, they change so often.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Especially as you evolve your learning too. Yeah. And this changes so much for like how you practice herbal medicine.
I like to use a lot of the plants that are like local to us, like that we find here in Indiana. I think it's really important to choose those plants sometimes over the ones like, I love holy basil. Holy basil tea at night is wonderful, but if I go in the woods in Indiana, I'm not going to go find holy basil. That's over in India that grows more times. It's native there. It's non-native here. So how about on this list, I'll give you some that are native to here and then maybe one that's not native. Okay. And we'll start with the not native one.
Okay, no problem. You can go over 5 too if you need to. I know it's very difficult. And by the way, you just crushed my spirit because like I love Tulsi so much and I grow it, but you're so right. It's definitely not native.
That's okay.
And I use it in my marinara sauce instead of like sweet Genovese, like in anymore. Like I just use Tulsi because she's just better.
Well, and that's the thing too. I also consider a farmer someone that, we have farming nowadays and it's like monocrop culture where we only grow one thing. Like we want diverse species. And like when you're a farmer, you get to decide what that diversity is. Yeah. You don't feel bad. Like you're choosing to, create a beneficial ecosystem. True. And so, if it's your land, it's your land. I would do that. I grow holy basil myself too, and I love it. Yeah. But the nice thing is that there's plants that are around Indiana that work just as great. Yeah. So the non-native one. So let's start with astragalus. because we're getting to winter season, and I love astragalus. I make a lot of bone broth soups, and so I like to throw mushrooms and astragalus into those soups. Astragalus, the root's usually what's used, and it's in our legume family, and so it's got polysaccharides, which are what we consider the immunological potential that it helps influence. And polysaccharides help a lot of times by influencing our immune cells, like our T cells, for example, and helping with different immunological responses that way. If someone came to me and said, hey, I tend to get sick a lot, I'd think about giving them astragalus. I wouldn't give it to them when they're currently sick, because you think about like you're building your castle defenses. You don't want to build up the defenses and lock something in. So give it to them when they're maybe not sick. And then if they are sick, give them maybe something like, I don't know, like echinacea, sweet Annie, to help with that immune system, to help kick what's going on. And then once they're clear of that, give them astragalus as a nourishing immune system support.
So sweet Annie, do you mean, is that the same thing as sweet Anne's lace?
So different ones. So sweet Annie, that's our Artemisia. So wormwood, that's in the same genus. Sweet Annie's a great one for our immune system that I love. If I get like a sore throat going on, I love to have a little bit of Sweet Annie on hand. Queen Anne's lace, which you mentioned earlier, different plant. People call it wild carrot a lot of times. That one is used sometimes for culinary, the seeds, but more specifically, it was used traditionally to help adhesion of the uterine wall to help prevent pregnancies from occurring. So it's kind of like that folk herbalism realm where we have a tradition of having herbalists use when an unwanted pregnancy occurred. And there's definitely still a use of that today. The thing about herbal abortions and herbal preparations like that is they can be hard on the body. But that's what Queen Anne's lace was originally used more in that context. So if anyone eats those seeds and wants to get pregnant, I would not eat those seeds. Because that could be, contradicting kind of your progress that way.
So, and going back to astragalus, that's something that I learned, like when I started making elderberry syrup, like, I don't know, 6 years ago or something like that. I had it in our formula. And I took it out. Because like you said, it's good to help the immune system for a healthy person. But if somebody's sick, not so much. But here's a really fun fact, Aron, that I just found out because I'm putting together an ebook that I'm releasing in 2023 for beauty and just what plants can help us and just like everyday recipes and tips. And I'm learning about telomeres. I don't know if you know about, telomeres, like how to lengthen our DNA. Astragalus is one of the best ways to lengthen. It's one of the most potent plants that they've found to lengthen our telomeres. I was so excited to find that out yesterday. I was like, that is awesome. So now I have to come out like, instead of, because in this book, I want to give recipes. I'm like, I actually like to eat, not just like tinctures and stuff like that. Like, so I'm like, I gotta go find some recipes that I can get astragalus into. If
that's an area that you're interested in with the telomeres, I would definitely look into chaga mushroom as being one that could influence that.
Love that.
And even I look at chaga. It's really the high antioxidant potential in that one. I was gonna say mushrooms like cordyceps too, like they can influence a lot of times genetic material replication, and that's how it influences also sometimes different infections that occur. And so, I'd definitely look up chaga for that. It'd be cool.
Fantastic. I'll put that into a broth recipe.
There you go.
Okay. All right. And a hot chocolate recipe because I make a really good chaga hot chocolate recipe. Okay. Next plant.
Okay. Next one. So astragalus, that's our non-native. Next one I'd probably go with blue vervain. And blue vervain is a great one. It's that bitter taste that we talked about earlier. If you have it, I remember when I was traveling to North Carolina, I have family friends that host me at an Airbnb quite often there. And when I was beginning to practice herbalism, I made them a big, strong infusion of blue vervain, and they drank it and said that needs some stevia. And I had a sip, and I was like, wow, that is bitter. So if you want to torture someone, make them a large infusion of blue vervain, and see if they throw up maybe. But blue vervain, it's Verbena histata, it's the genus and species. And it's a great one if you're like me and you're type A and you stress about getting things done and you want your to-do list to be crossed off very meticulously. And so it kind of helps you just kind of relax and kind of just take a breath and realize that it'll be okay. That being said, it works well with other herbs because it's bitter. So if you combine it with maybe like holy basil, for example, or other ones like lemon balm, it can be helpful, or wood betony. So I love blue vervain. It's one that I used a lot when I was out with Seven Song. And it grows near me. I can go down the street and find it. And it's pretty. It's got nice purple flowers. I usually harvest it throughout the summer. Next one. Let's see. I'd have to throw a mushroom on that list.
For sure.
So I would throw lion's mane on there. Lion's mane is one of my top favorite ones. I talked about how it's influential for the nerve growth, but I'll throw out a bonus thing in there. If you eat the mushroom, it's traditionally was used for gastritis, so gastric inflammation. Eat the whole mushroom. It's really good for that. Has properties in it called triterpenes. We have polysaccharides, which are one branch that are really water soluble. We have triterpenes on the other hand, more alcohol soluble. So lion's mane makes a really good dual extract, meaning we have water and alcohol into a tincture, making one thing. And so it's a little bit better as that form, in my opinion. Now you can take it as powder and it's still medicinal. I don't want to detour anyone from enjoying their lion's mane coffee or their lion's mane powder or anything like that. But other mushrooms like turkey tail that have higher beta glucans, that's that medicinal part that's attached to the chitin, the outer cell wall of mushrooms that we hear a lot about in medicinal mushroom research, is being beneficial. The beta glucans are higher in things like turkey tail, and it makes a better powder and capsule, and it gets destroyed by alcohol. Got it. Lion's mane tincture is probably the third one on that list. Next one, I'd say another really good one that people can look into, especially more in like this time of the year. They can look at burdock root. Burdock's a great one. The colder it gets, the more inulin it'll get. You can eat it. In Japan, they call it gobo. You can season it up. Stir fries are great. But if you want to use the root medicinally, you can harvest it. And some people put it into bitter tinctures, for example, like what we talked about earlier. They also use it for liver conditions, like hepatitis. It's been indicated as being potentially helpful. But people can also make a decoction out of it. And I want to make sure that I cover, there's infusions, which is where we let the herbs sit in hot water for about 15 minutes. And then we strain it. And then there's decoctions, which are more for our material, like our roots and our barks and our mushrooms, berries, or infusions for that lighter leaf plant material. Decoctions are what you'd use for a burdock root. So you beat it up a little bit more. And that way, after about 15 or 20 minutes or so, you have a stronger kind of liquid extract that way. So I'd throw that as a bitter thing in there. I'm trying to cover all of our bases, our immune system, our relaxation. So burdock root's a great one, and it's pretty easy to identify. It's really medicinal. My last one, I'll throw an edible one in there. So if people just want to find a good food source that they could harvest, let's throw garlic mustard in there, because I'm finding garlic mustard even now during the year, which is great. So garlic mustard, if you want something to add to stir fries or soups that tastes like garlic but is not garlic, you could add in garlic mustard. And you'll see the rib-shaped leaves. They have all this, like the teeth on them. And if you really want to help protect the ecosystem, it's nice because it's highly invasive and it takes the place of other plants. And so it likes to be pulled out. So if you want to harvest a lot of garlic mustard, harvest a lot of garlic mustard, and you're actually doing the ecosystem a benefit. You talked earlier about, sulforaphane and the different compounds that are in our cruciferous vegetables. I definitely think getting lots of plants like that is, a good thing to include. We have 3 phases of detoxification with our liver enzymes. People probably have heard like our cytochrome P450 liver enzymes and how we detoxify things, and we change lipid and different heavy metals and different compounds from their state into more excretable constituents, and we make them sometimes more reactive, but we try to make them less reactive in that phase 2. Things like conjugations and sulforaphation. So having things like cruciferous vegetables in our diet is really, really good to kind of help support that. So I like that you brought that up, and I wanted to comment on that because it can be really good as part of a detoxification strategy if someone's facing things like environmental toxins, for example.
Yes, 100%. And that's going into like that concept, Aron, is going into my little ebook too. And it also is because it helps our body create glutathione, right? Our master antioxidant. And like, so it just is, we're just bombarded. Like, no matter if we're trying to live like it, for girls that are like barely washing their hair, not putting even deodorant on, like not wearing makeup, like there's still toxins everywhere. So we have to support the body as much as we possibly can. So I love this. I am not familiar with garlic mustard. So now I'm going to go geek out after this episode and find some. Okay. Yeah. I love it. All right. You covered so much for us today. I really appreciate your help. Is there any last thoughts that you want to share, Aron, before I ask you the last question that I ask everybody? And also, how can we find you? Do you have anything, services, products wise that you want to share?
Yeah, I think first I'll give you guys contact information, and then I'll share some kind of final thoughts. So if people are interested in connecting kind of with what I do, one, you guys can come we have a free class every month at Georgetown Market, health food store on the west side of town. It's a wonderful family-owned business. They've been generous enough to carry a lot of the products that I sell. And again, my business is called Hartwood Herbals. They carry the tinctures and tea blends that I offer there, but then they've allowed me to see clients there out of the office space there. And then I do monthly classes, and they're free to the public. So if you're ever interested in things like herbal medicine, mushrooms, functional medicine, we have classes on functional medicine, mineral protocols, and kind of ideas. Definitely check those out. If you guys want to connect with me as far as consultations or plant walks, the best email is Hartwood Herbals, and it's spelled HART and then Wood Herbals. And that's hartwoodherbals@gmail.com. Or you can pick up one of my business cards at Georgetown. Contact me. I think I'm bad at social media. Let me just say that too. I think my Instagram handle is McNich, MCNICH _. You can follow me on Instagram. That's another way to connect with me. I post a lot of things on there. But in closing, I'll kind of just say, when you go about trying to like take care of your health, I think we've gotten into this practice nowadays where we've tried to marry, like, I think natural care with, like, I'll just call it as green allopathy is what we've gotten into, where there's a supplement for everything. There's an herb for everything. I'll prescribe it to you in a little capsule bottle, just like a doctor would. When I was growing up, I really wanted to be a doctor, is what I kind of wanted to go that rabbit hole. I think I saw that it was one, helping people, and made a huge impact. And I think I lived most of my childhood just feeling really insecure about myself. And so finding that, if there was a medical professional, they had a real, like importance in the community, and they were noticed and they were, respected. And I think, as growing up, kind of always doubting myself, that's something I wanted to get into. And it's always been my intention to get as close to like a natural doctor as I could. And it was very disheartening to see, like, one, that we have a medical system that practices allopathic medicine. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let me say that. It's a form of medicine that's really good for trauma care. But we've had institutions like the AMA and other agencies that have suppressed what we had is like eclectic medicine. We had eclectic physicians and those doctors that would run around with bags in their hands and the bottles that look like alcohol. And so we've had this suppression of different healing arts, and we had different types of doctors. And so it was also disheartening to see that then the natural, I think, way of going about things has turned into green allopathy, where we're going to give processed bottles and plastic bottles to people for their healthcare. So I think like nowadays, if you want to take control of your health, like you have to kind of go off road a little bit. And in my practice, I feel like I end up taking people off of supplements rather than putting them on it. And I think if someone wants to invest in their health, see how much you can get from your diet.
Yeah.
And see how close you can get to all those supplements that you're taking, to just going out in nature and finding them. Like, don't take a capsule of blue vervain, or don't take a capsule of any of those mushrooms. Go find it and try to get it before it's been processed and denatured.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get like the most potent stuff. And I think, I am so grateful to the life I've gotten to live, where I have had that relationship with plants, and it's a blessing every day to be able to do that. So I would encourage people, just take control of your own health through those means, and try not to fall down this rabbit hole of green allopathy, and take a different route.
I like that. I like that term, green allopathy. Okay. Aron, what does holistic living mean to you?
I think it means living close to nature, close to how we were living for a long time, and with little intervention. And, despite our clothes and all the fancy things that we have around us, like, we're just other creatures that are on this earth, and we're the most recent evolution, if you follow all of the evolutionary kind of things that have come about. And I think the more we realize that we came from this earth and that we have to live in harmony with it, the more we'll abandon the things that distract us, like cell phones and our inconveniences. And so, just trying to get in, I think, harmony with the way that we used to live before we have a lot of the progressions of like autoimmune disease and cancer that are popping up, and they're not popping up for no good reason. They're here for a reason, to help, in a way, heal us. So I think for people connecting back to that state before we had all these diseases pop up.
Wow. I love it. All right, friend. Thank you so much for your time. We are so appreciative. And I know that people are going to feel super inspired to get a little bit more natural and slow down and reconnect to the earth after listening to this. And also just open their minds a little bit more to new plants that they might not know about. And I appreciate all of your expertise and wisdom.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate what you're doing as well in the community.
Oh, thanks so much, friend. All right. Take care.
You guys.
I'm over here cheering you on because you just finished another episode of The Urban Pharmacy. For today's show notes, head on over to theurbanpharmacy.com and be sure to join us inside our private Facebook group called The Urban Pharmacy, where we share inspiration, live trainings, and holistic living tips to help you build community and the healthy lifestyle that you've always wanted. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button and please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Before we connect again on the next show, follow me on Instagram at The Urban Pharmacy. That's urban with an H and pharmacy with an F. And I can't wait to hear your wellness journey as we get to know each other better. There's truly no better time than now to level up your life. And I am so proud of you for showing up today. Until next time, be well, Health Crusader.